Hey folks, how you doing out there today? Remo back, and today we are going to be doing a little bit of in-editor look. For anyone that was just wondering how the worlds are made, for any aspiring map makers that are having some troubles getting the world to look the way they really want, and just, I don't know, I thought it would be kind of something fun and different that I spent a lot of time doing, and I haven't really shown it off a lot. I just wonder how much interest is out there, but I'm sure you'll all let me know soon enough. Now, what I have planned today is we're going to build just a small farm area. We're going to keep it pretty simple. The world's going to be, or the ground around it's going to be flat. We're not going to do anything too intricate, but hopefully you can pick a few things up and just try to make your world look a little bit more interesting. So to start things off, we're going to want to get rid of trees. We need an area to build. So we're just going to go up here. We got to minus all the colored stuff on the ground are the trees, and you can make different distributions with different stuff in them. So we want a nice area that has no bushes, no trees. We can fill stuff back in later. We just want to make a good, clean working area. Now we see we have rocks down there, so we also want to get rid of the rocks, which is the small rocks. And you can see I paint them quite light. You don't want too many rocks, make for kind of an annoying gameplay. Now this area is relatively flat. You can build with a lot more contour to the ground, but it is a lot more challenging. So what we're going to do today is just make everything flat. So we're going to go to flat, and we're going to tighten up the circle so it makes the whole area flat. And we're just, again, going to keep it real simple. Build a nice area. The reason I get rid of the trees first and then flatten it is you'll see these shadows disappear when it rebuilds after you do terrain movement. Now, first thing we'll see is there's a little line in there, which is going to be annoying in game. It doesn't look like much, but when you drive over, it'll be bigger than you think. So we're going to get our flatten tool back out. We're going to go to the smaller side, the lower side, sorry, and we're just going to flatten everything out so we get a nice even area to work off of. Again, let the program rebuild, and this is where we're going to start. So first thing we want to do is we're going to get a barn. So we go into the search area, and we're going to type, nope, that was wrong. We're going to type country. And here we have a barn. So let's start with that. Now it's important that, well, first, if you ever make a miss move like that, Control Z resets it. So now we're level with the ground. Now we just want to make sure, and one thing I watch for is the bottom of these doors. If you're not careful and the ground isn't flat, you can have part of your building floating. It's just on the verge. So that's what you want. You want to check every single thing that you put down in this game, because quite often you'll miss a few, even if you try. So next thing we want to do is we're going to add in a house, and we might as well do the matching red house. So we're going to do country again. I'm going to pick this guy. Oh, grab the wrong direction, Control Z, everything resets itself. Now I find these original vanilla game houses are a touch on the small side, so I usually scale them up just a bit, which is this little center button, and I do to about 1.15. 1.7 isn't bad either. Now this is where you kind of set your layout. If it was my house, I would kind of want my deck facing out to the river. So again, we want to check around for height before we leave a model. That's a little bit far out of the ground. We'll bring it down. Done. Everything's flat, and again, that's why we flattened this area before we started building, because it just makes it a lot easier. Now the next part that I typically do is lay in the driveway, which helps give you kind of a nice layout idea of what you're going to go, or where you're going to go with this. So we're going to put the fallout so it's a little tighter. That's basically how it feathers the edges of the road, and the strength around 70 is fine. So we don't have to overthink this now. We can change it, but it just gives us a better look at everything. So maybe over here a bit of an area for parking for their stuff. The house, I'm thinking we'll probably put a garage beside it. So your driveway's just going to come off and pretend there's a road out that side. Next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to have a pathway up to your house. And we can put stones, like patio stones down here, but we don't want the grass to poke through, so that's why we're making it dirt. And I usually do the same thing under a deck so the grass doesn't poke through the model. And at the bottom of the stairs, just because it's a high traffic area, so it's going to make it look a little more realistic. Okay, so let's get our garage that we were going to put in there. Go back to models. We're going to do country again. This is the one we want. Again, we're just going to scale these things up just a touch. And this is something, if you're building, if you keep things in the 90-degree orientations, it's a lot easier because you can set down here. You can see mine is minus 56. If you keep everything in 90, 180, I guess I could show you if I put this to 90, then it's easy to line models up. And this is how I get so many different looks out of the same buildings, is just by smashing things together. Now here, to make sure I'm on the level the same, we're going to make sure the walls kind of mush into each other in the same spot. So it looks like we're level, so we're just going to kind of line up the siding there. And then we just want to finish up this driveway. And we're good. Okay, we got the startings of our little area. Now next, say we have animals. I think we want to throw a little fence paddock in. So we're going to type in fence. And there is one kind of field looking fence that is typically my go-to farm looking fence for a little paddock. Now again, fencing is so much easier if you keep yourself on the 90-degree axis. I'm just having a few mouse issues here. It doesn't seem to be... I think my button's wearing out. I usually go through about a mouse a year building maps. You do so much clicking. So if we are in the 90-degree orientations, it's really easy to keep things straight and build. But we're not, so we're going to use the barn to line up our fence. Basically, we just want it all to pop out of the wall at the same time. We know we're roughly on the same plane. Start it on the edge of the wall. Make sure it is not floating out of the ground. Give yourself a little below and above ground so you have a bit of give if the ground goes up and down. Again, fencing is so much easier when done on flat ground. Now I typically just kind of hide them together because you wouldn't have two posts. Here you're going to hit control when you click the second one, oh, my apologies, we're going to duplicate that. So when we control, using the control function, you can select multiple models, and this it makes things a lot quicker. Now this paddock would be a lot wider if I was building it in game, but just for demonstration purposes, we'll keep it that side. So we're going to select all 4 of the fences, copy them with a Control D is to copy the models, and we'll set them in there. So now we're going to finish the fence, and again we're going to have to go up to our barn to get our orientation, make sure we're straight. Wasn't a bad guess to start with. You can see one side's a little deeper in. There we go. So don't know what happened there. We're in the spot. Oh, so now we're going to bring it down to this end. We're just going to do the same process. Copy. And again, multiple select, copy. And we'll see if we get lucky here and everything lines up. Sometimes you have to just fudge it a little bit. So now you see if you overlap them, sometimes they'll shimmer as the 2 textures try to get into each other. So usually I offset them a bit. So now to fix our little misalignment issue, we're going to select all 4 of these. We're going to end up at this back end. That way our little movement is close to where we need it. We're just going to move it over and finish that fence up. So now we have ourselves a little paddock. Next thing we want to do is maybe add a little bit to the house. So first thing I usually add in, so I don't forget, is a door light. It's these little things that really sell the maps. And make them feel realistic. So again, as with everything, if you stay on the 90, 180 degree planes, everything's a lot easier. We've done an angled build here. Now, that light's way too big. It's like almost a third the size of the door. A lot of models are too large or too small, so just be mindful of it. You'll get used to it. You can see I'm using that center strip on the door as a centering location. Oh, I definitely need a new mouse. This button's not holding anymore. We're going to slide it up where we want it. We need to not get the camera in the roof. And I'm just going to bring it out with the arrows because you're a little fine tuning, but okay, so we got a little street lamp. Now, one thing I do for garden beds that you see a lot of times in the world is just a log. Sided area, so that log's a little bit big, so I'm just going to make it a touch smaller. And that looks fairly straight. Keep in mind the world. Oh, this mouse is just being a bit of a thing right now. I'm not too sure why it's doing that, but now, as I was saying there, the world isn't always perfectly straight, so don't dwell on it too much if everything doesn't look perfect. Typically, things have a little bit of character to them. And one of the main reasons I copy and paste, especially something like this, is then they're both the same orientation. If we wanted to move them, we can select both and adjust them so they stay the same. So now we're just going to copy one of these and turn it the other way. Again, just use a building that you're working off of to center yourself up. And we'll see how this works out. So again, when you're overlapping models, if I go like this, you can kind of see a mark there. So we want to keep them close to the end. And we do have ways of hiding them. We want to make it smaller, but this one worked out absolutely perfect. Sometimes it does. Let's bring that back. Okay, so we got ourselves a little garden started there. Now we're going to select this. We're going to do it on the other side. One thing to watch is it sticking out the side of the wall there. You got to kind of hide it in the model. Again, we'll keep that there. Now I've got one out quite a bit further, so we can just select all three of them and get them close. Again, the world is never perfect, so don't dwell on it too much. And you know what? I'm just going to move it a little closer to the steps like the other one. Okay, so now we want to make dirt in our garden. So we're going to go to our painting tool. And turn it up a bit, get that going quicker. So we're just adding to the garden. Now it looks pretty plain, but we'll start filling this in now. So we're going to go to plants. And we're just going to pick a quick bush. We don't need to overthink this too much. I usually like to, over into the steps a bit, make it look natural. We all don't keep up on the pruning. We're going to adjust the size and the side we use. Another trick of reusing the same models many times. And you need to in games. The more you use, the more it taxes the system. So being able to reuse the same model multiple times. Rocks are a good example. There aren't that many rock models, even though we may put a few thousand. That might be a little excessive, but several hundred rocks out of the same 10 or 12 rocks can look all very different if you orient them differently and smash them into each other. Now here we're just going to grab some flowers. And again, you don't want everything to be perfect, and you don't want it to look repetitive. I always make sure I give stuff a spin and overlap these flowers a little bit. Helps. And these plants are the same. You can select multiple plants and move them as one with the control, clicking with control selected and then clicking D. Now, in terms of plants versus models, because they're two different spots in the editor, you'll see we have add model, add plant. You can't select a plant and a model. I can't select the house and a flower because they're two different things, but I can select flower and a bush because they're both plants, or a log in the house. So something to keep in mind. I'm going to make these just a little bit bigger. Again, give them a spin. We're just keeping this simple. There are a lot of options in the editor. Now again, for simplicity's sake, we're going to make our walkway straight. You can make curves. It just takes a little more messing around. So we're going to select this block. Now this is way too big. I'll just scale it down with that little button in the middle. And we want, that's a pretty high walkway. We want it basically just above the ground, just below the step. And again, like I said before, if you want to go the extra mile, people do notice. I could just keep all these blocks the same orientation and most folks wouldn't notice. Maybe nobody would. But those are little things I do when I build, just to add realism to what we're doing. So now let's put our grass back in properly. So first of all, we want to make sure everything under it is dirt so that we don't have grass growing up through our cement. Now I'm going to put some little flower bed area down the side of the walkway. And we'll put the grass back in. These little grass things are just a distribution. They're called dried canes in the editor. So we'll just get rid of those. We don't need them here. They're more of a swamp thing. So what we can do is, you know what? Let's go to plants. We'll just do some different flowers down the walkways. Now you see there we only have 4 flower models. Again, usually is what makes things a little more repetitive, but you think of how much space it would take up if they had 20 models of everything. Like, you gotta accept the fact that there's only so many options, but you can make it work if you're creative. Now what we're going to do is select all of them, and because we don't want those ones sticking out into the walkway, we're just going to give them all a turn. Now what we can do to kind of mix it up a little bit is basically think of it as you're just landscaping your own little place. I've gotten to the point with the amount of houses I've built around these worlds that I feel like I do maybe get a bit repetitive. But I guess it truly is inevitable with only so many models in game. No one seems to complain though. Okay, so we got our little flower bed. Now something I always like to add in around a house is a few things on the front. So like maybe this bench. So we're just going to get it up in place. Now that's way too small. I typically scale this to around 1.8, 1.9. And we just want to be mindful that the feet are touching the ground, what I do is I usually go too far and then come back up so you can see the bottom of the feet appear. And again, setting the back distance, push it right into the wall, come back out. Now you know you're good. Maybe a small table. And again, I most times find this table to be scaled just a touch too big. So I usually size it down a bit, and again, sink it into the wall. Make sure your distance is good. And if you really want to go the extra mile, and again, there's only so many things. Here's another example of a model that's way out of size. But we just bring it down till it looks like, compare the size of the door. Now, one thing I always like when building a farm is putting the big old farm tree out in front of the house. Always gives that kind of nice feel. So what we want to do is plant, and we're going to do one of the big oak trees. Now this model, or every model, kind of gets in the way of the camera and clicking. So I usually try to do all this little stuff before I put the big trees in. Now we want to see we got a branch going into our house. So just little things to look for when you're placing stuff. We still have a branch that goes through our house. Let's move it out a bit. Spin it. That side looks to be about the flattest. I think we're pretty good there. One thing I've done in the past that I put tree houses and stuff in, but let's put up a tire swing. So we're going to go to overlay, down to simple wire. I'm going to grab an edge, slide it up. Now this one we just have to be careful and make sure we get it into the tree branch. You can't make it wrap around or anything. So we'll get that end close. We're going to bring this one over. And when you're vertical, it'll start kind of swinging around like that, so we know we're in the ball game. We're going to lift it up out of the ground. So now we need a tire. So we're just going to type TIR. We'll pick this one. Now again, sizing things is always something you want to be mindful of. Do not assume that the developers or whoever built models size these things correctly. Many things are out of whack. So I made the tire a bit bigger, and what we'll do is we'll bring it down just past the end of the wire. Kind of look at a few sides, make sure it is centered more or less. That's the best we can do with attachment. That's into the branch. Alright, we got a nice little tire swing. Now what we probably want to do is, well, maybe first let's add in some farming stuff. So one thing I've done in the past, again, we don't have a whole lot of options. This is literally the only tractor model. And it is missing a tire, but I have previously, just to kind of play it off a bit, is put a wheel model on it. And I think most of you get it, that there's just so much. I mean, you could make all this stuff yourself, but again, it takes almost nothing to make mods too large. I don't know, I enjoy the challenge of trying to use the in-game assets, plus I appreciate the fact that it should work and not have issues. Now if we copy that, we're going to keep the wheels the same direction. So that sells it as best we can. We got this little cultivator that's been in there for a while. I think it's a vanilla asset actually. Just put it down, make sure we're touching the ground properly. Now for the sake of it, because we're not going to expand really far on this, at this point I would get out our tree brush that we've chosen, and we're going to just bring the trees in a little bit because it helps you look at the finished area. Just building things plain, I find it's harder to hit the vision. So I like to kind of fill in things as I go, and that way you get a more realistic look at everything. Again, we're just going to put a bit of the bushes in now. We'll bring it up to the edge of the driveway essentially. This would also be a spot, and maybe we'll do it. We could put a dock in down by the river. So we're just trying to hit the edges of the driveway. Pretend there's a road out there. Now something else you might have kicking around at a farm are the hay bales. They're called stack in the editor. We'll just keep them on their side for now. So again, we want to do a few of them. Now another thing with this model is it's a dynamic model, which means when you bump into it in game, it will move. I'm going to make a stack of these, so I'm going to turn the physics off. We're just going to copy it, and we're going to tweak each one a little bit. Again, adding to the realism, because anyone that laid that in there with their tractor would not have get them all perfectly straight. Again, so we can copy them all. Pretend that door's not there. Give them a little tweak. Then what we're going to do is we're going to copy all but one. We're going to make that a copy. We're going to move it to the middle. And again, just make sure that they're seated down on top of each other so they look realistic. So there. Now we got a little bit of a hay stack. Now another thing that I do find kind of sells the farm look is continuing a fence down the side of the driveway a bit. I usually just do more of an aesthetic fence rather than, I'll use the same one, rather than going for a fence to keep a dog in or something. The ones in town I sometimes do it. It does take a fair bit of time to put in fences. So again, we might as well select two. Now, the nice part about this is we can angle it and know both of them are going the proper angle, so we just have to bring it up. And then we're just going to work with two because it's enough of a corner. that if we do more than 2, we're going to be way over in the yard far away. So now, and it may not work out perfect, but again, you can adjust the dirt on the driveway, which might be easier, is to just take that same arc and we're going to copy it. And we can take this end one, just kind of straighten it out a bit. This is where sometimes you just gotta do the best you can. Maybe just run it right along that. And I said it earlier, don't worry about everything being the perfectly straight fence or any of that. Most people's fences aren't. And if they are, it's usually not for too long. At least in my part of the world, winter beats everything up pretty hard. So that one we're going to want to angle just a bit more. Maybe do one more fence up that side. See, I did a move too quick to the next one. Now see, that's what I was talking about. The tree gets in the way when you're trying to select models underneath it. I think it has something to do with the branches. Anyways, there we go. There we selected the tree again. Now we'll just clean this up a little bit. And probably do a couple more pieces of fence. Oops. Always start on the far end. Keep this adjustment to the closest to the end you're working on. The further you get away from it, if I were to go like this and move it way over here on the screen, this little jobby, it's not precise. But if I have it right up on my screen like this, it is. So something to keep in mind. 2 is just kind of get behind it, see if we're doing a somewhat straight shot. These fences are also dynamic models. When you ram them together like this with the physics still on, they kind of explode a bit, but I don't think having 2 posts side by side looks really proper, and sometimes it's amusing when the fences blow up. And then maybe we'll do like 2 more here and just kind of end it. These are just ideas. You can do so much with what we have. It's just being creative. And something like this, when I build it for a level, I'll come back to several times before it's all said and done. So right here I would probably put just a few more trees in. Come around a little bit more. Some people like big yards. And now just to finish it off, just gonna do up the back patio a bit. Our barbecue. Again, we want to make sure we're at the right height. So your wheels are the best indication for this. You just want it just touching. get our little patio set. I always find this table is a little bit large. We'll get some chairs. Now again, when we're placing the chairs, we don't want 4 nice pushed-in chairs. I'm willing to bet the chairs sitting at your place probably aren't like that. I can promise you mine aren't. Let's put this one, somebody was looking out at the river. Maybe the 4th one over here. Whoever was cooking. No other little thing. And as you use the models, you'll remember more of what's in here. There's a lot. And remembering the name of stuff, which isn't always what we would call it in English per se, is quite beneficial to finding stuff. Let's throw a hose there. Now, what we could do as well is throw in a little flower bed. Again, there's only one of these, but you can use the size difference. Remember to keep it realistic though. And kind of mash it together to, like, I've done things like this before, and you kind of hide the rocks. And you keep that flow to the angle of it. Paint under it with dirt again, because we don't want grass growing up. And then you just put whatever you like in here, like something simple. The go-to for me is maybe a couple spruce trees. Again, just to make them look a little different. It's probably tipped a bit too much. Oh, we wanted a plant. And just pick something else. One thing I use once in a while. Not exactly sure what this is. It says an herb. What you do is you turn off the ability, all the plants, the game can set the height so you don't have to worry about it. They'll just be sticking out of the ground properly. But I've used this as kind of those little ground cover shrub things. If you sink them down in the ground a bit, you know, you can be creative. There's a lot of different stuff. And probably for symmetry's sake, you might have one over there as well. Kind of growing out of the garden again. It doesn't have to be perfect. We all don't take care of our stuff properly. Not everyone, sorry, but many. So anyways, there's a quick little farm build in a few minutes. Could put a lot more into it. A lot of little things. For example, you know, maybe especially around a farm over the years, you get a bit of junk in the back. That you may want to add in. Again, all this little stuff just adds to the realism. Make sure things are down below ground level so they're not floating. Really, the sky's the limit. Use things creatively, play around. that's our first little start. So let's go ahead and have a look in game and we'll see what the finished product looks like.